It was deemed by George V to be admirably suited to Orientals.
Everything is such as one would not see even in a dream. One should regard it as fairyland. The heart cannot be satiated with seeing the sights, for there is no other place like this in the world. It is as if one were in the next world. I have never been so happy in all my life as I am here.
The local paper wrote of Punjabis, Sikhs, Gurkhas, Pathans, moving, lounging, or resting in their little snowy beds beneath the ornate arabesques of the domes, or amidst the flying dragons, the demon-headed serpents, the great lotus chandeliers, and all the exotic splendors of the pavilion walls and roofs. As in France, the soldiers were confronted with a society about which they knew little, and about which they only had vague, often incorrect notions.
It's an interesting comparison to look at what the letters say about France. I mean, in the majority, their responses to both are, these are wonderful countries. There's more freedom, there's more equality. You can, the cities of London and Paris are just superb. They're marvelous. They're paradise. I mean, I didn't see anything like them, and I like it. Don't know whether that meant they wanted to live there, but they certainly were impressed.
The Indians were really fascinated by Western culture. They'd never seen it before. Their view of Western culture had been the cantonments, where you had 30 or 40 British folks wandering around, all attempting to look superior. And indeed, that was one of the major social factors in the cantonments, was always having to look superior to Indians, which must have been quite a strain, I would have thought. But they get to Brighton, and they're meeting people who are not of this class. They're meeting tradesmen, they're meeting the people who deliver the milk, and, you know, interestingly enough, they're also meeting white women. I haven't seen this before, and this drives the Indian officer corps up the wall. If there's one thing that's common to all theories of racism, it's the idea that somehow the people against your being racist have some sort of sexual appetite beyond your own.
Hold your hand down, naughty boy. Hold your hand down, naughty boy. Last night in the pale moonlight, I saw you, I saw you.
They treat Indians very kindly. They all mix with everyone. English girls are very free in their nature, and they love Indians very much. Love-making and breaking in Europe is nothing but a matter of choice. Friends are plenty when purse is full.
I am very happy with this place. There are lots of women to be had. They write letters to us to come to their houses and have food with them, and that we can get a woman. I'm much confused in mind. I will certainly send you a woman. But you are wise. Will you think it over and then reply?
When Indians go off to Brighton, and they can have relations with white women, sexual relations with white women, the British are terribly afraid these people will go back to India and explain to the rest of the population that the British aren't really what they're pretending to be.
It was decided to restrict the Indians' movements.
I am kept like a prisoner, because the city is out of bounds. The reason being, it is said, that the Indians misbehave themselves here.
Many were, however, taken on supervised housing around the south of England and to London, which impressed them greatly.
When one considers this country and these people in comparison with our own country and our own people, one cannot be but distressed. Our country is very poor and feeble, and its lot is very depressed. Our people copy the faults
of the British nation and leave its good qualities alone. We shall never advance ourselves merely by wearing hats and trousers and smoking cigarettes and drinking wine.
The men began to feel that Britain would have to do something for India. But for most of the soldiers, the future of India was a luxury. For them, their own very existence was in doubt. They could not understand, because it was not in their military tradition, that they had to cross the sea and go back to the war, and not back to their villages, duty done.
As a man picks a handful of roasted grains and flings it back on the oven, so we are being sent back to fight. Only those who are crippled, blind, and with one limb and unfit for work are being sent back to India.
I have a presentiment that I will not see you again, and my mind is troubled that I shall not witness my little daughter's marriage. Those of the wounded who are without limbs, these are the ones who are being sent back. But destiny is the strongest of all, and what is to be will be, no matter what. There is no family which is not involved in this war, and every house is a house of mourning.
Back in the trenches, 1914 passed into 1915.
Our reveille was the morning heat. A weary day, a drawn-out process of avoiding shells to which we seldom replied, for we hadn't the ammunition to do it with. Our evenings, the interminable gloom lighted up by German very lights, none of firewood. Our nights, a long vigil, tired men, waiting in muddy trenches for the dawn.
The river Loos rose 7 feet and widened to 100 yards. Trenches were flooded. The appalling state of the ground made it impossible to mount any real tactical operation. But the war to end all wars went relentlessly on. By February, the Mail's censor reported that breaking point was near. The morale problem soon reappeared.
Wilcox, the commander, blamed it on the Indians' natural inferiority. I mean, after all, the Indians were now fighting white men, so it's not surprising that they did poorly.
In February, Wilcox rated his battalions by race, denigrating Gurkhas, Sikhs, Bhopals, and Pathans. General Keary of the Lahore Division was even more explicit. By this method of reckoning, Wilcox and Keary had between them damned over half the men who had come to France.
Now, they have two choices. They can dispense with their ideology and try and rebuild a new army. But look at the consequences of that. If you dispense with that ideology, you're also dispensing with the justification for the British officer corps of the Indian Army. You're also dispensing with the justification for the empire and all. The other alternative is to use your ideology and say, well, these folks are just inferior, and that's why they can't fight. Now, which would you do?
In early March, it was decided that the Indians would be withdrawn before the next winter. On the 9th of March, the British commander, General Haig, ordered the British 4th Corps and the Indians to capture Neuve Chapelle. For the first time in France, the Indian soldiers all fought together as one unit.
We fix bayonets and look towards the enemy. The enemy's trenches are 2 yards off. In front is barbed wire, and we are not expected to attack here. With a shout to our guns, we hurl ourselves forward. The enemy's bullets scorch us, while machine guns and cannons spread their shot upon us. We leap the wire entanglements and overwhelm the enemy, killing some and capturing the rest.
When we reached their trenches, we used the bayonet and the kukri, and the blood was shed so freely that we could not recognize each other's faces. The ground was covered with blood.